Just to inform all the participants who are attending the meeting and who will also be speaking at today's event, this session is being recorded, and we want to inform you as well as we want your consent for the same. Kindly let us know if you have any option towards it, but this is basically for the for the publicity and for the outreach purposes. We will surely take care of the footage with us. So on that note, welcome to all. We all have gathered here today to observe the 19th World Day Against Child Labor. In year 2002, ILO initiated the World Day with the intention to help spread the message that child labor remains to be a serious problem and we must do more to combat it. Now, in the world recovering from COVID-19 pandemic and economic setbacks induced by the pandemic, it has become more, it has developed a threat for significant number of children getting pushed into child labor. We know that the schools have been closed and employment and income has been lost by many parents. This eventually going to have impact on the scale of child labor in the country. Knowing the urgency of the situation, today we have organized and dedicated our discussion on the World Day to COVID-19 and its impact on child labor in India. We are fortunate that we are fortunate to have a panel of esteemed speakers today for the inaugural session, including representatives from the ILO and UNICEF, Ministry of Panchayati Raj and Ministry of Labor and Employment, as well as Kailash Satyarthi Foundation. This will be followed by this session, Panorama on SDG 8.7 platform partners, with the participation from children and civil society members. We will have a technical session discussing more in detail about the action points for our future work. And at the end, we have a special program on launch of a media campaign on child labor. On behalf of ILO and UNICEF, I would like to welcome our honorable guests, speakers, staff members, audiences who have joined us virtually, and most important of all, the children who have joined us today and to whom our efforts are dedicated to. I would now like to invite Ms. Dagmar Walter, Director of ILO Decent Work Technical Support Team for South Asia and Country Office for India, to provide us the opening remark.
Thank you very much, Nilesh. Respected Ms. Anuradha Prasad, Special Secretary, Ministry of Labor and Employment, Government of India, Mr. Alok Premnagar, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Panchayati Raj, Government of India, Dr. Yasmin Ali Haq, Country Representative, UNICEF, India, partners of SDG Target 8.7 platform, trade unions, employers organizations, members of NGOs and civil society organizations, media, and especially children who have joined us today in this event. Good evening and namaste. On the occasion of World Day Against Child Labor today, I welcome you all to this virtual event under the slogan Act Now, End Child Labor. I am glad to see that government representatives from the world of work, UN agencies, civil society, and members of the community have come together on this platform to take stock, define goals, and commit their actions to end child labor. This gathering is of utmost importance, as how we treat our children is a reflection of our societies and values. In times like this pandemic, vulnerabilities of children can be expected to increase multifold. The future generation of this country entirely relies on us for urgent action to safeguard the rights of the child to education and harmonious development. Measures to stem the pandemic have led to closure of schools and families losing out on jobs and livelihoods. Past experience have proven that emergencies lead to sharp increase in poverty and may increase families' reliance on child labor for income. Now, the ILO-UNICEF joint report, Child Labor 2020 Global Estimates, released 2 days ago, show an increase of 8 million children in child labor in the world from the previous figures of 152 million, putting the new total at 160 million. Now, this is, of course, of great concern. And due to COVID-19 related poverty, the estimates may further rise another 9 million children worldwide in child labor by next year, 2022. It is in a way unacceptable and calls for immediate joint action in every country. Despite attempts to extend social protection and health services, we may not be able to measure the actual impact of our policies on preventing child labor immediately. Thus, in these times, it is demanded to urgently direct interventions to prevent child labor. We cannot risk backtracking and these significant gains that we have had over the last 2 decades. Actually, child labor decreased by 94 million over the last 2 decades. Now, also, we have our eyes, of course, on the Sustainable Development Goals through Target 8.7, and we steer a renewed global commitment to end child labor in all its forms by 2025. Forging partnerships for accelerated action, sharing knowledge and leveraging resources is something we have to do at this point. With this aim in sight, we need to realign strategies towards stabilizing livelihoods, adequate access to public services, promote decent work opportunities, and emphasize on socioeconomic reintegration of families. And it is very clear that no single organization can achieve it alone. The only way forward is through collaboration, cooperation, and joining forces. The SDG Target 8.7 platform being developed jointly by ILO and a range of partner organizations, including UNICEF, is one such effort in this direction. We jointly deliberate on issues and challenges amplified by the COVID-19 pandemic, thwarting our efforts to make India child labor free. As part of the joint efforts, ILO, in collaboration with the government and social partners, is intensifying its efforts to address child labor prevalence in specific sectors and geographical areas, in particular cotton and mica supply chains currently. The ILO also recently renewed its strategic, technical, and policy advocacy alliance with the South Asia Initiative to End Violence Against Children, SAIVAC. The government of India and ILO social partners together work towards the ratification of ILO's conventions 138 on minimum age and 182 on worst forms of child labor. And this was achieved in 2017. ILO's Child Labor Convention 182 in particular is the first to achieve universal ratification in its history. And India has demonstrated the will to ensure that every child everywhere is free from child labor in its worst forms. The ILO aims to expand its advisory services, contribute to program development and implementation, reinforce a knowledge base in particular on child labor. Now, World Day Against Child Labor this year, 2021, is a significant occasion for advocacy during the UN International Year for the Elimination of Child Labor. It is expanded to the 1 week, actually, it's not only 1 day, but 1 week, from the 10th of the 17th of June. So throughout this special week, events and activities around India and the world provide an opportunity to showcase progress on the implementation of the International Year through, in particular, action pledges. We're really looking to action. Acknowledging the vital role of employers and workers' organizations among the influencing partners to the power of CSOs to amplify outreach, the genuine intentions and efforts of policymakers and multilateral agencies to prevent the menace of child labor, I reiterate the call of International Year for the Elimination of Child Labor that we need to follow, act, inspire, and especially scale up. We all need to choose a specific action that contributes towards ending child labor. We all need to pledge it today. This will inspire others with the lessons and knowledge we will generate and scale up the efforts to protect children who are the future of India. Thank you so much, and I look forward to our engagement today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dagmar. Thank you very much for setting the context and giving us the inspiring way forward to take the pledge again for ending child labor. Now, I would like to invite our joint organizers, Dr. Yasmin Ali Haq, UNICEF India country representative, to provide her thoughts. We know as a strong believer of forming partnership to accelerate research for children, and she has some wise words here for us. Over to you, Dr. Yasmin.
Thank you very much, Nilesh. Greetings to my fellow panelists. Dagmar, good to see you though virtually. Special Secretary Anuradha Prasad, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Panchayati Raj, Mr. Alok Premnagar, my colleagues from the various organizations on the platform. I see Mr. Kant there. And of course, I also understand we have our member from NCPCR with us today. Really, it's wonderful that we come together to mark this really important day, World Day Against Child Labor, because it continues to exact a heavy toll on millions of children around the globe, stealing their future and often leaving them with significant physical and psychological scars. Now, we all know the COVID-19 pandemic and the ensuing economic and labor market shock continues to further exacerbate the already fragile situation. And Dagmar has highlighted how our latest ILO UNICEF report is really calling an alarm to the potential rising poverty driven by the pandemic and the crucial impact it will have on children. We are at this critical juncture where we saw the rates going down. We were quite well assured that we will start marking our achievements against it. Yet this shock that has hit the globe is really going to affect the mission that we have all embarked on. In India, we've seen the prevalence of child labor declining on an average. The progress has been uneven. Still, you know, if we look at the last census, which was 2011, there are more than 10 million children in the age group 5 to 14 years who were counted as being in child labor. That was 4% of the total child population at that time. UNICEF, along with partners, has been actively supporting the strengthening of systems in several states across the country on prevention and rehabilitation of children in labor. Also, we have had the generous support of the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office of the UK and have focused our programs in the states of UP, Bihar and West Bengal with this generous support we received. Last year, we also focused on supporting children on the move and their families as part of the COVID-19 response. I think the vision or the visuals of more than 700,000 migrant families who needed the support with access to social protection, psychological support, and the essential protective services is something that we are proud to have been engaged with. We know that education alone cannot solve the problem, yet it is so crucial, as are the linkages to social protection programs, which are which really pulled together all the different elements needed for families not to resort to a negative coping mechanism, which includes child labor, rather have the child at home, in school, and in a nurturing environment. So it's really important for us to take stock at this time and to act together to eradicate this practice, which again is also at times a mindset issue. Our executive director, Henrietta Fore, said at the launch of the latest report, the ILO-UNICEF joint report, and I quote her, "We are losing ground in the fight against child labor, and last year has not made that fight easier." She urged governments and international development banks to prioritize investments in programs that can get children out of the workplace and back into school, and supported by social protection programs that can help families avoid making the choice. Excuse me. So as we move forward, it's crucial that this partnership we see here today, UN agencies, concerned ministries, civil society partners, members of the SDG Alliance, and the young people who do have an influence on their own future, that we come together to look at a few crucial areas. One is building on the data and evidence to really better understand where prevention is going to be most effective. The second is to strengthen implementation of existing legislation. And we know that in India especially, we have strong legislation, strong programs, and it's really important that we get the synergy of the programs and keep the child who is at risk of being forced into labor at the center of it. The third would be to providing psychosocial support and health services for children and their families, especially as COVID-19 has caused loss of so many lives and jobs. The fourth area I would urge us to act upon is really looking at a holistic, a multi-sectoral approach to address the root causes of child labor. The fifth area would be targeting assistance to those children and families that are most at risk, that are most vulnerable. And that includes children who are unaccompanied, migrant or internally placed children, and even children who do have disabilities, so that they enjoy the same rights as all other children in India. It's so important for us to focus on developing a sustainable, long-term protective solution for the victims of child trafficking, including appropriate age care or age-appropriate care arrangements, access to child-friendly education and justice systems, as well as consistent monitoring to prevent re-victimization. So today I look forward to the launch of the joint communication strategy, which you will also see. And we really expect that through this campaign, we will be able to generate awareness across all sections of society to prevent and respond to child labor. And I really look forward to us coming together next year and saying, yes, we took action and we were able to make a difference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Yasmin. We all are hopeful for changing the trend which we have seen in the current reports. We really are looking forward to that. Just continuing our discussion about the data, the recent data has reiterated that 70% of the child labor exists in the agricultural sector, and thus in the rural areas. To accelerate our aim of zero child labor by 2025, we have support of Ministry of Panchayati Raj here. I would now like to call Mr. Alok Premnagar, Joint Secretary with the Ministry of Panchayati Raj, to provide us a special address on insights from their work. Mr. Nagar.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having invited me here. I'm honored to be among the esteemed panelists. And this has been a very difficult year, as has already been said. I mean, right from your neighbors refusing to, for you to put your garbage out because you've got a patient of COVID in your house, to countries refusing each other vaccines and all. We've seen some of the worst aspects of human beings. And I was also reading in your report that the rate at which the child labor was being eradicated, which had reduced to almost 2/3, might have actually ground to a halt. So it's a big challenge, and we have the 2025 deadline in front of us. We need to, you are already aware that poverty and lack of decent work options, emergencies, migration, and social norms that condone child labor. And Nilesh has already made the point about most of the poverty, most of the child labor being in the rural areas. So the government last year, in 2021, the employment guarantee scheme, the Manrega scheme that we have, it saw an increase of 80% over the budget of the previous year. It rose to 111,000 crore, just so that people could be provided gainful labor at their doorstep. Likewise, all manner of public works and big projects and all, they were restored on priority so that the people wouldn't have to suffer. But then there is only so much that we could do because the schools are shut and everything. I will also briefly tell you the things that we have done in addition to. So the thing about social norms condoning child labor, this is something that we worked on for one reason, that local government is a state subject. And so we need to nudge, we need to provide people with the evidence, we need to advocate, and we need to work with them, trying to have them move in that direction. And some of the states have done splendidly. UNICEF were actively involved in the institution of the child-friendly Gram Panchayat awards, which is now come of age. Now we have awards distributed across the entire country. To determine this award, there are all manner of welfare measures that are taken into consideration for both women and children mainly. And child labor is a component of that. This year we had 14,000 Gram Panchayats. We have a total of 2.5 lakh Gram Panchayats in the entire country, of which 14,000 had applied for this award. So that gives you a sense of that people want to come ahead and say, no, we've done good in this, and so we want to be considered. So incentivization by way of that, this is something that we have done, and it is growing, the enthusiasm for this award. Likewise, by way of nudging, you are aware that the Finance Commission grants, though they are devolved directly to the panchayats, so the quantum works out approximately at the rate of 500 rupees per person per year. So this is the kind of amount that goes to a Gram Panchayat. So how much money is going depends mainly on how many people are there in a Gram Panchayat. And so the Gram Panchayats have to come together and formulate a Gram Panchayat development plan. Typically, the expenses tend to go towards infrastructure activities like roads, like side drains and stuff like that. And in order to try and get people to invest towards child welfare, women welfare, social welfare activities, we have a problem. Tell them that, are you addressing a gap related to this sector? And if you are not, then it counts as a negative or something. So this is something that we do consistently, and at the end of which we posit the state with sort of a report card telling them that how many of your GPs went ahead and invested 1%, 2%, 5% of their resources towards this activity, and how many did not. And another new development has been the institution of a model citizens charter for Gram Panchayats. This is a development, I think it was released by the Honorable Minister in the week before last. And so this is a citizen charter that the Gram Panchayat would have to each adopt for itself. We are hoping to conclude the exercise by the 15th of August. And in this, there are so many of these service deliveries that are spoken of. So for instance, the quality of your midday meal and people not being able to secure admission in the school. So if they have a grievance, so they can demand for it, depending on, of course, whether the thing has been devolved to the Gram Panchayat in the State Panchayati Raj Act or not. But then, once we have that in position, then it becomes possible for a child or the parents of that child to ask that why is the quality of food in the midday meal not good enough. And it is up to the states. This is just a sample. There are about 4 or 5 such services relevant to our topic at hand, and it is up to the states. So I would invite all of you who are here, experts in your field, to take a look at that. It is there on the ministry website, panchayat.gov.in. It is about the delivery of services. If you have suggestions, then I'd welcome you to write me through email and all, because we are devising a dashboard for its completion by the 15th of August. We'll be releasing it on the 25th, probably. So that would again be an endeavor to tell the panchayat. See, the SDG thing has to be localized. So the day a panchayat, or most panchayats would be able to say that we do not have child labor, that way we would have got rid of the problem completely from the country standpoint as well. So this localization of goal, in fact, each panchayat also now has a capability of devising its own sankalp or some goal for itself, that we want to see ourselves free of infant mortality, or we want to see ourselves free of a certain disease or something, depending on where you are standing in the map of the country. So this was, we started this year, but we are going to strengthen it in the coming year. So if a panchayat has written its sankalp or its goal as being, for instance, being child labor free or child marriage free or some such thing, then they would be investing their energies in the successful completion of their goal over the next 2, 3, 4 years, and their GPDP resources would have to be so deployed. We have also, in fact, led by the PMO, the departments and ministries of health, women and child development, education, and of course, Panchayati Raj and rural development. We are actively collaborating in the convergence of our respective schemes. So all these ministries have LGD seeded their information, which is a local government directory code, which enables interoperability of the data. And then having done that, see, I told you we are in the business of nudging and advocating. So beginning from this year, or from last year, the block and Zilla Panchayats also have resources under the Finance Commission. And so the expenditure related to each of these sectors would be aggregated and told to the panchayat at the time of its planning. Like last year, education department spent so much and these people spent so much. So all these sectors in social welfare ministry also, we are collaborating. So we could similarly do that with respect of any other ministries. And we are ready to meet halfway, this LGD thing that we do. We are actively collaborating with the WCD in their Poshan Abhiyans. In fact, they have now devised a Poshan tracker, and we have, that is LGD seeded. So it's possible for the Poshan tracker information, which tells you that how many children are severely, acutely malnourished, and how many children need special. Similarly, have it in respect of labor information also, if such a database exists. There is also this thing of Bal Sabhas. So we have not really pushed it aggressively so far, but there are a few states where it has been conducted with some measure of success, Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, and there are certain others. So the children of these panchayats get together and have periodic meeting on issues related to them within their panchayats. So that is something we are looking to now increase. You are aware that we have some of you would be aware that we have a People's Plan campaign that normally begins on the 2nd of October every year. And in a campaign mode, we try and get the Gram Panchayat development plans completed and uploaded. So in that, the Bal Sabha component is going to be inserted this year. Again, nudging people to have children come together and perceive themselves as stakeholders and then state their position forcefully. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I think you used two of the key strategies which we all which we all advocate for as well. With one is convergence, and the second is social movement. I think both these strategies are going to be the drivers for our mission of eliminating child labor from this country. Of course, India has been setting examples for the world in adopting progressive policies, and the same also applies to the standards on child labor. The Ministry of Labor and Employment has an important role in leading the agenda of eliminating child labor and has been a strong advocate of decent work for all. I would now like to invite Ms. Anuradha Prasad, Special Secretary, Ministry of Labor and Employment, to provide us the keynote address.
Thank you, Nilesh, and good afternoon, everyone. Director of ILO Country Office, Ms. Dagmar Walter, Country Representative for UNICEF India, Dr. Yasmin Ali Haq, my co-panelist, Mr. Nagar from Ministry of Panchayati Raj, representatives from various other ministries of Government of India, representatives from other partners, ladies and gentlemen, and our children who are with us today. It gives me immense pleasure to address today's program on the occasion of the World Day Against Child Labor. The year 2021 is being observed as the International Year for Elimination of Child Labor. Year 2021 also marks the first year following the universal ratification of the ILO Convention 182 on the worst forms of child labor. It has been a long and commendable journey to reach the milestone. Great strides have been made in tackling and finding innovative solutions to the problem of child labor. However, as my co-panelists said earlier, the progress that has been made so far is now at serious risk due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which has been adversely impacting the lives and livelihood of people, more so children, as they are the most vulnerable across the globe. The pandemic now threatens to drive more children into the labor market due to the loss of livelihood of the parents, growing unemployment, preference for cheaper labor, and illiteracy. With the closure of schools due to the lockdowns and lack of access to digital means of education, disadvantaged parents may start preferring to send their children for the pandemic. In this scenario, joining hands to tackle the issue has now become more important than ever. This will also provide an opportunity to address the challenges that are posed by the pandemic and also to accelerate the progress towards the goal set by the SDG target 8.7 to end child labor in all its forms by 2025. India has been one of the countries working relentlessly to address the problem right from our pre-independence days. The Employment of Children Act 1938 is a testimony to this. Further, our constitution is eloquent on the recognition of dignity of human life, including the life of tender children, and the need for their protection. And in line with this philosophy, the National Child Labor Policy was enacted with a three-pronged approach: strict and effective enforcement of child labor-related laws, convergence of various welfare schemes and services for the benefit of the parents of child labor in order to improve the economic conditions, and launching of major projects in areas of high concentration of child labor. We've thus adopted a holistic and multidimensional approach to eliminate child labor from the country in a phased manner. The Child Labor Prohibition and Regulation Act 1986 has been amended, and the amended act came into effect on 1st September 2016. This completely prohibits employment or work of children below 14 years in any occupation or process, and moves a step ahead by prohibiting employment of adolescents aged 14 to 18 years in hazardous occupations and processes. A proven way to prevent child labor is to ensure that no children are left out in accessing education. The minimum age of 14 years for employment is therefore in sync with the age for compulsory for completion of compulsory schooling under the Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education Act 2009. This ensures that the age for minimum entry into any work is linked to the age of completion of compulsory education, so that children below this age are all in schools. Another critical step in eliminating child labor is providing rehabilitation to the rescued children. And Government of India, Ministry of Labour and Employment has been implementing the National Child Labour Project, the NCLP, to identify child and adolescent labor, rehabilitate them through special training centers, and mainstream them into formal education. It is the largest child labor project in the world. The NCLP envisages door-to-door survey and awareness generation program to sensitize employers, parents, and children to enable them to perceive and realize the dangers of subjecting children to work at a tender age. The program also envisages elementary education and vocational training to children based on their age groups. It is based on a multi-pronged and integrated strategy for educational rehabilitation of the children rescued from work and the economic rehabilitation of their parents. Through the project, around 1.3 million working children have been mainstreamed to regular education system through special schools and training centers. On the international front, India has been participating in the international program on the elimination of child labor, IPEX, since 1992. Under IPEX, several projects have been taken up directly benefiting thousands of children. UNICEF has also been assisting in our efforts for the rehabilitation of the children. India has also ratified the two major ILO conventions in 2017, Convention number 138 regarding minimum age of employment and Convention number 182 regarding worst forms of child labor. To ensure the effective enforcement of the legal provisions and the smooth implementation of the National Child Labour Project, an online portal has been launched by the Ministry of Labour and Employment, and this is the platform for an effective enforcement for no child labour, or the Pencil portal. This was launched in 2017, and the portal has various components such as child tracking system, a complaint corner, a connect with the states. As was brought out, the states have to finally implement and enforce policies on child labor, and the National Child Labour Project itself. All the features are on the portal. More recently, we now have adopted an inbuilt system of marking of real-time attendance of the enrolled children at the special training centers and monitoring of this attendance. This is very important because we found that many of the centers may be there, but may not really be delivering as per their objectives. The stipend to the eligible children has also been automated so that it goes directly to the bank accounts. The portal is connected to the nodal officers of around 620 districts in the country. Complaints can be made on the portal or via the Childline 1098, which is a helpline service of Ministry of Women and Child Development. After the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic, the government has taken several socio-economic measures to help the poor fight against the pandemic and to enable them to get back to work, so that in turn this ensures that the parents do not push the children for work. A number of measures have been taken, and I'll just touch a very few, just some of them. So that under the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan package, there is provision for distribution of 5 kg free food grain every month to the poor households, and this has covered around 800 million people. This was in implementation till November 2020 last year, and recently the program has been extended from April 2021 to November 2021, as announced by the Prime Minister a week back or so. The wages under the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Program, MNREGA, have been increased. Financial assistance through direct bank transfer has been provided into the bank accounts of the building and other construction workers, the Jan Dhan accounts held by women, and the other vulnerable groups. Collateral-free working capital loan is being provided to street vendors under the PM Swanidhi program, and livelihood opportunities to the returning migrant workers who returned to their home states. These were provided through the Employment Rural Public Works Program under the Garib Kalyan Rozgar Abhiyan in the 6 focus states. And these are the states where there would be the high prevalence of child labor. The government is also undertaking major labor reforms through the labor codes, and this is for the long term. The labor codes have been enacted by Parliament last year in September 2020, and these 4 labor codes envisage income and social security for all categories of workers, including the unorganized workers, the migrant workers. I'm quite confident with the pooling of the concerted efforts of all the stakeholders, the government, employers, employee organizations, civil society, and others, we would be able to taper down the problem of child labor significantly. I look forward to the deliberations today, and hopefully we can all take back lessons and learnings on how to, we end this practice completely. Acting together, it is within our means to ensure that the future of work is a future without child labor. I conclude by congratulating and thanking ILO and UNICEF and their achievements and the outcomes in this area, and wishing them all the success in their endeavor, and many thanks for organizing today's program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prasad. We hope for your continued cooperation on the subject of fighting child labor. I think you have explained very well the power of social security schemes or in combating the issue of child labor. These insights from all of our speakers have provided us a better picture of the current status as well as the achievements on to tackle the issue of child labor. And it's time to give them a vote of thanks. I would like to invite Ms. Niharika Chopra, Director Policy with the Kailash Satyarthi Children's Foundation, who are also one of our partners for the platform SDG 8.7. Niharika, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nilesh. On behalf of the SDG 8.7 platform, I'd like to thank Ms. Dagmar Walter, Ms. Yasmin Haq, Mr. Alok Nagar, and Ms. Anuradha Prasad, and for joining us today. Your commitment towards ending child labor and doing so in partnership is encouraging. The SDG 8.7 platform has brought together partner organizations to raise a united voice to end child labor by 2025 in India. We aim to bring the voices of employers, organizations, UN agencies, civil society organizations, and other stakeholders. We hope to bring our individual and collective strengths and efforts to support the government of India to end child labor. I extend my appreciation to the government for their commitment. There is a shared understanding that the pandemic has aggravated both the problem at hand and its challenges, but it has also intensified the need for urgent, bold, and collective action. We agree that we cannot continue with business as usual. The new global estimates are troubling, to say the least. We have witnessed an increase in child labor to 160 million even before the pandemic began. There can be no justification for this. The truth is inconvenient but simple. We got complacent. As reiterated by our esteemed speakers, we have achieved steady progress till 2016 by working with each other and holding each other accountable. We did it before and we can do it again. The elimination of child labor is possible if we give the most marginalized children their fair share. A fair share in national, state, and local budgets, a fair share in policies, laws, and their enforcement, and most importantly, fair share in social protection, including direct scheme benefits to children. This platform is committed to support the government at all levels and in every manner possible to achieve this. We are committed to strengthen our partnership and to work towards building a stronger Alliance 8.7 globally. Thank you, everyone. We'll take the platform, the event forward from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Niharika, and thank you all the panelist members again. With your vote of thanks, Niharika, we would complete the inaugural session of our event, and we will now be proceeding to our next session, Panorama on SDG 8.7 platform. We have children waiting in the lobby. We will now start our next session. Thank you. So just to introduce the second session of the day, which is Panorama on SDG 8.7 platforms, I would like to tell about in September 2015, all UN member states adopted the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. These are 17 interrelated goals and 169 associated targets to promote economic, social, and environmental development. Among them, Target 8.7, in Target 8.7, all the countries have committed to take immediate and effective measures to eradicate forced labor in modern slavery and human trafficking, and secure the prohibition and elimination of the worst forms of child labor, including recruitment and use of child soldiers. And by 2025, end child labor in all its forms. To create a synergy of different governments, civil society, and multilateral agencies, globally, Alliance 8.7 has been formed. It provides partners to come. It provides a platform for partners to come together and share information, promising practices, lessons learned, and to demonstrate progress of the SDG 8.7 target. While we are taking efforts to join, while the country is taking efforts to join Alliance 8.7 in future, currently we have developed a platform, SDG 8.7, to collaborate and contribute towards this issue. Now this special session where we are going to hear from children who are our key stakeholders and for whom we have actually organized this day's event. We will hear from them, and we will also get a glimpse of the work being done by the SDG Platform 8.7 partners. I would like to invite Mr. Amod Kant, General Secretary of Prayas Joint Action, Prayas JAC Society and their team to share their work. Over to you, Mr. Amod.
Thanks once again. Thanks once again to the Ministry of Labour and Ministry of PRI. And of course, Ma'am Dagmar from ILO and Ma'am Yasmin from UNICEF. We are really privileged to be here. In the shadow of this devastating pandemic, 14 months now, celebrating this World Day Against Child Labour and also the International Year for Elimination of Child Labour, it's a unique program. We decided to do it actually. The children's problems have aggravated many times. The children on the reverse migration, the children suffering with their parents, without their parents, the millions of children being on these streets and being in working conditions, we are facing it really, and we shall hear about them. Now, Prayas is an organization which I represent also. We have 600 frontline workers working during this pandemic for the past nearly 14 months now. 150 centers, including starting from Kashmir to Andaman Nicobar Islands, Arunachal to Gujarat, and nearly 150 centers that we run. And we have with us helplines. We are running 1098 helplines. Let me just point out that 10 months only, nearly 44 lakh calls came to child helplines, and more than 4 lakh calls were acted upon. Prayas runs 38 homes and shelters, and during the pandemic, we have rescued hundreds of children. Let me inform the UNICEF also. And those children they happen to be in our homes and shelters. 2 children are here. Both of them are affected by the pandemic in a way. One of them, a girl child, happens to be an 8-year in domestic servitude, about 16-year-old now. And then, of course, during this pandemic only, she somehow came out from her home and was rescued by the police and brought to Prayas. Another child was working in a chemical factory, Bangles factory, in a devastating condition, a very, very hazardous condition, whose face was burnt out, and a lot of other children were with them. And he was also rescued from there. So now these children are there. They'll be produced by the managers. Mukesh from Jahangirpuri Children's Home and Deep Shikha from Tughlakabad Children's Home, the boys' home. Now, I'll be requesting the Yogendra to show a small documentary which was made by Ritesh Mukesh and the Prayas children. It's their own document. Yogendra, could you please?
मैं रितेश सिंह प्रयास संस्था में कार्यरत हूँ। आज मैं आप सभी लोगों को प्रयास बाल सहायता केंद्र के बारे में बताने जा रहा हूँ। यह संस्था पिछले 33 सालों से बच्चों और समाज के हित के लिए कार्यरत है। प्रयास बाल सहायता केंद्र देश में बाल श्रम के जरिए बढ़ने वाले अपराधों पर अंकुश लगाने का कार्य कर रही है। मार्च महीने में मिली सूचना के अनुसार प्रयास बाल सहायता केंद्र की टीम और संबंधित थाना और एसडीएम महोदय के साथ जहांगीरपुर इलाके में गई, जहां उन्होंने चूड़ियों के कारखाने में बच्चों को कार्य करते हुए पाया। वहां से सभी बच्चों को सुरक्षित निकालकर बाल कल्याण समिति के समकक्ष प्रस्तुत किया गया। बाल कल्याण समिति के आदेशानुसार सभी बच्चों को प्रयास बालगृह जहांगीरपुरी लाया गया। बच्चों के स्वस्थ जीवन को बेहतर बनाने के लिए, उनके शारीरिक और मानसिक स्वास्थ्य के सुधार के लिए सभी बच्चों को योगा कराया जाता है, जिनमें भिन्न भिन्न प्रकार के आसन और योग कराए जाते हैं। कोविड-19 महामारी में सरकार के द्वारा दी गई गाइडलाइंस का पालन करते हुए जितने भी नए बच्चे आते हैं उन्हें 15 दिन के लिए आइसोलेशन वार्ड में रखा जाता है, जिनकी देखभाल के लिए प्रयास बालगृह में एक डॉक्टर्स की टीम और पैरामेडिकल स्टाफ उपलब्ध रहते हैं। बच्चों के लिए एक एम्बुलेंस की सुविधा है जो बच्चों को आपातकालीन स्थिति में निजी अस्पताल तक पहुंचाती है। प्रयास बालगृह में बच्चों के लिए अलग अलग कक्षाएं बनाई गई हैं, जिसमें योग्य शिक्षकों के द्वारा फॉर्मल और नॉन फॉर्मल शिक्षा दी जाती है। जो बच्चे स्कूल जाते हैं उनके ऑनलाइन पढ़ाई के लिए उनको सारी सुविधाएं उपलब्ध कराई जाती हैं, जिससे बच्चों को शिक्षा की मुख्य धारा से जोड़कर उन्हें एक बेहतर नागरिक बनाया जा सके। बच्चों को शिक्षा के साथ काउंसलिंग और मनोवैज्ञानिक सहयोग भी उपलब्ध कराया जाता है। बच्चों के स्वास्थ्य को ध्यान में रखते हुए बच्चों को पोषण युक्त साफ सुथरा भोजन दिया जाता है। अस्वस्थ बच्चों को स्पेशल आहार दिया जाता है और उनका वजन समय समय पर मापा जाता है। बच्चों के अंदर एक अलग प्रतिभा होती है, जिसे निखारने के लिए हम स्किल डेवलपमेंट का प्रोग्राम चलाते हैं, जिसमें कंप्यूटर क्लासेस, इलेक्ट्रीशियंस क्लासेस, मोटर मैकेनिक क्लासेस, प्लम्बर क्लासेस और इनमें बच्चों को कुशल बनाया जाता है। साथ में बच्चों को नई नई तकनीक से जोड़ा जाता है, जिसमें उनका आत्मविश्वास बढ़े और वह नए ऊर्जा के साथ अपने आप को कुशल बना पाएँ। पर सभी बच्चों के लिए पुस्तकालय, जहाँ भिन्न भिन्न तरह की ज्ञानवर्धक किताबें संग्रह हैं, जहाँ बच्चे पुस्तकों को पढ़कर ज्ञान अर्जित करते हैं। बच्चे जहाँ पुस्तकों से ज्ञान लेकर जीवन को समर्थ बना सके, बल्कि समाज तथा मानवता कल्याण के लिए कार्य कर सकें। बच्चों के संपूर्ण विकास के लिए उन्हें मानसिक और शारीरिक रूप से फिट रखने के लिए आउटडोर गेम बैडमिंटन, क्रिकेट, फुटबॉल, वॉलीबॉल से जोड़ा जाता है। बच्चे अपनी रुचि के हिसाब से गेम खेलते हैं। बच्चों को उनकी प्रतिभा के हिसाब से उन्हें प्रतियोगिता में हिस्सा दिलवाया जाता है, जिससे उनके मनोबल में वृद्धि हो। सभी बच्चों के उम्र के हिसाब से वातानुकूलित सदन दिया गया है, जिसमें बच्चे अपने उम्र के बच्चों के साथ घुल मिल कर रह सकें। सभी बच्चों को अलग अलग बेड, बिस्तर और लाकर दिया जाता है। बच्चों के स्वास्थ्य को ध्यान में रखते हुए रोजाना सदन की सफाई की जाती है, जिसमें बच्चों का योगदान के द्वारा उनके बेड को सही किया जाता है। रोजाना सभी सदनों को निरीक्षकों के द्वारा निरीक्षण किया जाता है। आज विश्व बाल श्रम दिवस है। हम सभी लोग चाहते हैं कि हमारा भारत बाल श्रम से मुक्त हो और सभी बच्चों को उनका संवैधानिक अधिकार दिया जाए। धन्यवाद।
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Yogesh. Myself, Vishwajit Ghoshal. I'm Director Project Prayas Jack Society. I will be introducing my colleague, Mr. Mukesh Kumar, who is the Superintendent of Prayas Children Home for Boys. And my colleague, Ms. Deepshika Singh, she is Superintendent of Prayas Children Home for Girls, Tughlakabad. Now requesting Mukesh Kumar to kindly introduce the child to whom you people have rescued from the child labor operations recently. Over to Mukesh Kumar.
नमस्कार सर, मेरा नाम मुकेश है और जो आपने अभी वीडियो देखी प्रयास बालगृह की, इसकी देखरेख मैं करता हूँ और मैं प्रयास में रह के बड़ा हुआ हूँ। और हमारे पास प्रयास में यहाँ करीब 200 बच्चों को रहने की व्यवस्था है और करीब 57,000 बच्चे यहाँ से निकल के जा चुके हैं, जो समाज के अलग अलग जगह पे रह रहे हैं। और मैं हमने मार्च में कुछ बच्चों को चाइल्ड लेबर से रेस्क्यू कराया गया था, जो बच्चे चूड़ी की फैक्ट्री में काम कर रहे थे। तो उसमें एक बच्चा जिसकी उम्र 10 साल है, उसको बिहार से किस तरह दिल्ली लाया गया था और किस तरह से काम कराया जाता था, वो बच्चा आप बीती आपको बताएगा। बेटा बताओ।
नमस्ते सर।
नमस्ते। नमस्ते बेटा।
तो मैं गया जिला का रहने वाला हूँ। बहन 5 है, भाई 4 है, माई बाप भट्टी प्रति है। एक दिल्ली से आया सेठ, बोलता भटे पैसा कम मिलेगा, दिल्ली में पैसा ज्यादा मिलेगा। उनको लालच में हम लोग के भेजा गया था। तो सुबह से 8 से लेके रात को 11 बजे काम करते थे। तो कैंपस में पूरा मेरा फेस जला हुआ था। मैंने बाहर नहीं लिख के एक बार कोशिश करा, लॉकडाउन के कारण मैं नहीं भाग पाया। एक दिन प्रयासी मुकेश भैया पुलिस लेके आया दिल्ली में, कारखाने निकाला बाहर, प्रयास में लेके आया, प्रयास में रहे, प्रयास में लिख पढ़ के बड़ा होकर पुलिस बनना चाहते हैं। एक बात और सर, गांव में रहते थे, लैपटॉप पे बात नहीं करते थे, आज तुम्हारे पास लैपटॉप पे बात कर रहे हैं। थैंक यू सर।
Thank you, Beta. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mukesh. Now I'm requesting my colleague, Ms. Deepshika Singh. She is Superintendent of Prayas Children Home for Girls, Tughlakabad, to kindly introduce the child with August gatherings over here. Over to Deepshika Singh.
Good afternoon, everyone. So here is a girl who was working as a child labor in domestic servitude, and she is going to present her story to you.
नमस्ते सर, मैं गाजीपुर की रहने वाली हूँ। मैं 16 साल की हूँ। बचपन में मेरे माता पिता का दोनों का देहांत हो गया था। उसके बाद मैं अपने बहन के पास रहती थी। वहां से 2 साल किसी के घर में काम किया था, झाड़ू पोछे का। उस समय मैं 8 साल की थी। एक दीदी के साथ फिर मैं दिल्ली आई थी। दिल्ली में इस्माइलपुर में किसी फैमिली में काम किया 5 साल तक। इन 5 साल में ना कभी घर पे मिली, ना कभी घर वालों से बात हुई, और ना कभी मुझे पैसे मिले। सुबह 8 बजे से लेकर रात के 12 बजे तक काम करते करते थक जाती थी। तब मैंने एक दिन घर की दादी से कहा कि मुझे अपने घर जाना है। तो उन्होंने बोला कि हम घर नहीं छुड़वा सकते। तो फिर मैं बिना बताए घर छोड़ के निकल गई थी। तो रास्ते में मुझे पुलिस वाले भैया मिले। उनसे मैंने हेल्प मांगी कि मुझे अपने घर जाना है और मेरे गांव छोड़ दो। उन भैया ने लाके मुझे प्रयास में रखा। प्रयास में आने के बाद मैं यहाँ धीरे धीरे पढ़ाई करना सीख रही हूँ। पढ़ाई के साथ साथ सिलाई भी सीख रही हूँ। मैंने आप सभी को इसलिए ये बात बताई है कि हमारी तरह और भी काफी बच्चे हैं जो कि उनको पढ़ने लिखने का सबको मौका मिलना चाहिए, ताकि अपनी लाइफ में कुछ आगे बड़ा बन सके।
Thank you, Beta.
Thank you so much.
धन्यवाद।
She has made 2 very important points, which I must articulate in English also. She said that every child has a right to education. Let me inform you that the National Education Policy has given a figure that 32 million children in school going age are not going to schools. It's a big blot on us, and we must do it. In fact, the amendment of the child labor law was made in the name of right to free and compulsory education, and it is not happening. The other point is that the children need safety. Both these children came from extremely hazardous conditions. This girl is an orphan, and this girl remained working in the domestic servitude for 8 long years. In country, we have got 20 million children who happen to be out of family contact, who are like orphans. And we have total 7,000 odd homes which can look after 265,000 children only. Only 1% of the children who need immediate help and support protection are being looked after. It's a big problem. We need to bring about changes in our NCLP. We need to introduce central sector scheme in a more systematic manner. And we really need to give these children an opportunity to go to school. Thank you very much on behalf of the voluntary organizations, particularly those who are running homes and shelters and child lines like this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Please, Vishwajit, carry on.
Yeah, thank you, Nilesh, and thank you, sir. Now I'm requesting Yogesh to kindly show our PPT also, which we have shared with the team.
I think the CRI has to make a presentation. Should we ask to make the presentation?
Sure.
Sure. So thank you, Mr. Kant. And now we have, we will like to invite Ms. Preeti Mahara, our Director Policy Research and Advocacy with CRI, to continue with their presentation.
Thank you, Nilesh. Thank you, Amoji. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Respected dignitaries and friends, namaste and a very good evening. CRY Child Rights and You is an Indian NGO founded in 1979, and we work with many local NGOs across 19 states in India and have impacted the lives of over 3 million children. And in our fight against child labor, CRY believes that each child must have the opportunity to complete 12 years of quality education and has the right to play and leisure in a protective environment. Today we have two young voices with us from CRY intervention areas in Rajasthan and Uttar Pradesh, along with our NGO partner, Shri Jan Jeevan Kalyan Samiti from Rajasthan and Dr. SRF Foundation, Dr. Sampunath Singh Research Foundation from Varanasi, Uttar Pradesh. Well, before I go into the discussion, one important announcement is that the session will be facilitated in Hindi and the summary of the discussion will be I will be sharing in English at the end of the discussions. So I am now going to directly to the young voices. लकी, आप मेरे को सुन पा रहे हैं?
हाँ दी।
ठीक है, तो आप सभी लोगों को जरा अपना परिचय दे देंगे पहले?
यस दी।
हाँ जी, बताइए।
जय हिंद, मेरा नाम लकी सोनकर है। मैं बनारस उत्तर प्रदेश की रहने वाली हूँ और बाल पैरवा समूह की मैं सदस्य हूँ। बाल पैरवा एक बच्चों का संगठन है जिसमें कि हम सब बच्चे अपनी बातें खुलकर रख सकते हैं। और मेरे पिताजी मोटर पार्ट के काम करते हैं और मेरी मम्मी कूलर में खस वाला काम करती हैं और हम लोग भी मम्मी के साथ मिलकर करते हैं। हम लोग का सालों से स्कूल बंद है। तो
ठीक है, तो अभी लकी ये बताइए कि जो अभी आपने बोला कि कोविड के दौरान क्योंकि साल भर से स्कूल बंद है, तो जरा बताएंगे फिर आप और आपके साथी कैसे स्कूल में पढ़ रहे हैं या पढ़ाई कैसे चल रही है, क्या कोई परेशानी हो रही है? हाँ जी।
पहली बात तो हम लोग के पास स्मार्टफोन नहीं है और हम लोग की छोटी सी कोठरी है, तो हम लोग जाते हैं। मेरे बस्ती में एक CIC खुला है जिसमें कि हम सब बच्चे पढ़ते हैं। कितने बच्चे तो सब्जी बेचते हैं, चाय बेचते हैं, फल फूल बेचते हैं। मेरे तरह कितनी लड़कियां की खस भी बढ़ती है, मगर वो लोग भी जाती हैं CIC में पढ़ने के लिए।
CIC क्या है?
चाइल्ड इंफॉर्मेशन सेंटर।
अच्छा, ठीक है। तो स्कूल से कोई संपर्क होता है आपका? अभी साल भर के दौरान हुआ है कोई संपर्क? स्कूल से कोई आया है आपके पास?
टैबलेट से।
नहीं, CIC में तो टैबलेट होगा। आपके जो स्कूल है, आप कौन से स्कूल में पढ़ते हो?
कमलापति त्रिपाठी गर्ल्स इंटर कॉलेज बनारसी।
हाँ, वहां से कोई आया है आपके पास में?
नो मैम।
अच्छा, तो ये बताइए कि ये जो कोविड के दौरान है कि जैसे शिक्षा के बारे में तो आपने बोला कि कुछ दिक्कतें परेशानियां हो रही हैं, इसके अलावा कोई कुछ परेशानियों का सामना कर रहे हैं क्या आप लोग अभी?
हाँ, मैं तो बिल्कुल कर रही हूँ। जैसे कि हमारा सालों से स्कूल बंद है और हम लोग की पढ़ाई कितनी वेस्ट जा रही है। हम लोग स्कूल में रहते थे तो फ्रेंड से बात करते थे, पढ़ते थे, खूब सारी मस्तियाँ करते थे। अब तो घर पे रहते, एक तो हमारी छोटी सी कोठरी है उसी में हम बंद रहते हैं। और हम लोग अपनी बस्ती में कैंप भी लगाए थे सारा क्राई द्वारा। जैसे कि हमारे बस्ती में तो कोई सरकार द्वारा योजना तो थोड़ी लागू हो रहा है, तो हम भैया दीदी लोग मिलकर दवा छिड़काव की थी जहाँ की गंदगी पे कि हम सब बच्चे बीमार ना। मगर कोई जांच तो नहीं करवा रहा था, डर रहा था करवाने में। मैंने बोला आप लोग मेरा देखें, मैं पहले करवा रही हूँ तब करवाई। मैंने हौसला दिया सबको कराने के लिए। और तो डॉक्टर भी मेरे आई थी कैंप में, दवाई दी, साबुन, हैंड वॉश, सैनिटाइजर वगैरह, मास्क वास्क सब दी थी और एक तो पुर्चा भी दी थी, चिट्ठी, हेल्पलाइन नंबर।
अच्छा, तो लोग वैक्सीन लगा रहे हैं कि नहीं लगा रहे हैं?
अभी तो वैक्सीन आया नहीं है। वैक्सीन का नाम सुनते जैसे लग रहा है कि कोई भूत आ गया, इसलिए कोई तो ले नहीं रहा। मैं रजिस्ट्रेशन कर रहे हैं मोहल्ले में।
बड़ा गलत बात है भाई।
अभी तो बच्चे को तो वैक्सीन आया ही नहीं।
हाँ, पर बड़े लोग लगा रहे कि नहीं लगा रहे हैं?
अभी नहीं, डर रहे हैं सब।
तो आप लोग उनका डर दूर कर रहे हो कि नहीं?
हाँ, कर रहे हैं, बिल्कुल करेंगे। ये तो अच्छी चीज है।
हाँ, बिल्कुल। अच्छा, ये जो आपने बोला आप एक बाल समूह के सदस्य हैं, है ना? तो उसमें क्या करते हैं?
जैसे कि हमारे बस्ती में मीटिंग होता है, जैसे बड़ी दीदी लोग मीटिंग करती हैं, अपनी बात खुलकर बोल सकती हैं। और जैसे कि मम्मी लोग बोलती हैं कि हमारे बच्चा का पढ़ाई ना हो तो स्कूल में फीस इतना हो तो उतना हो तो वही समझाती हैं। और हम लोग भी अपना बात खुलकर इसलिए करते हैं दीदी, हम लोग के मोहल्ले में सब ऐसे बोलते हैं, ऐसा ऐसा चीज होता है। तो
अच्छा, बहुत बढ़िया। तो अभी लकी ये बताइए कि बहुत सारे लोग क्योंकि अभी आपको सुन रहे हैं और आप सुबह से इस कार्यक्रम में भी है, सरकार से भी लोग हैं, संस्थाओं से भी है, अन्य बहुत सारे लोग हैं जो कि बच्चों की सुरक्षा के लिए काम कर रहे हैं। तो आपने बहुत सारी बातें तो रखी हैं, लेकिन अभी अंत में जाते जाते कुछ सुझाव देना चाहेंगे हमको बच्चों की
हाँ, मैं तो
शिक्षा, बाल
बिल्कुल
श्रम
देना
को
चाहूंगी।
लेके? हाँ जी।
जैसे कि सरकार जो योजनाएं लागू कर रहे हैं वो बच्चों के लिए बहुत सही बच्चों तक पहुंचाए। और तो और जो बच्चे कम उम्र में काम कर रहे हैं, जैसे कि बताया नहीं, सब्जी वगैरह बेच रहे हैं, आंगनबाड़ी वाली मैम जाकर उनके घर जांच करे कि वो बच्चा काम तो नहीं कर रहा है, और काम कर रहा है तुरंत फौरन वो जांच करने के बाद तुरंत बताए सरकार द्वारा, सरकार के पास पहुंचाए। और तो और हमारे बस्ती में तो सियासी है, हम लोग पढ़ ले रहे, हमारे सियासी में टैबलेट है, हम लोग के पास तो स्मार्टफोन नहीं है, और बस्तियों में भी स्मार्टफोन नहीं है, तो और बस्ती में भी पढ़ाई नहीं हो रही, तो और बस्ती में भी सियासी होना चाहिए पढ़ने के लिए।
ठीक। हाँ जी, कुछ और बोल रहे हैं आप?
हाँ, और मैं बोलना चाहती हूँ कि सबको सुनो, नहीं सबको सुनो मेरी बात, अब हर बच्चों के हाथ में होगी किताब।
हाँ,
जय
बहुत
हिंद।
बढ़िया। जय हिंद। धन्यवाद लकी। मैं अब मेरे दूसरे युवा साथी हैं, जुड़े हुए हैं, सलमान अलवर राजस्थान से हमारे साथ में जुड़े हैं। सलमान, आप मेरी बात सुन पा रहे हैं? माइक ऑन कर लीजिएगा अपना। हाँ जी,
क्या बोल?
हाँ जी, अपना परिचय दे दीजिए सलमान।
मैम सभी को नमस्ते, मेरा नाम सलमान है। मैं गांव खड़कबास का रहने वाला हूं, जिला अलवर है, और 10वीं क्लास में पढ़ता हूं। उम्र 15 साल है और किराए से जुड़ा हुआ हूं, और श्री जनजीवन कल्याण से श्री संस्था से जुड़ा हुआ हूं, और किशोर समूह का एक मेंबर हूं।
बढ़िया। तो अभी आप 10वीं में हैं, तो साल भर से स्कूल की पढ़ाई कैसी चल रही है? पढ़ रहे हैं या नहीं पढ़ रहे हैं? क्या हो रहा है? कुछ समस्या तो नहीं आ रही है?
समस्या ये आ रही है, साल से 10वीं अब 9वीं पास हुई जब से, तो 10वीं में आए तो लॉकडाउन लग गया। उसके बाद लॉकडाउन नहीं, अभी तक नहीं खुलने की संभावना नहीं है।
तो स्कूल से कोई संपर्क है आपका अभी?
स्कूल से संपर्क नहीं है। वह दीदी आती थी, सिरोज दीदी, वह मीटिंग करने के लिए आती थी, तो हम वहीं पर चला जाते हैं।
अच्छा सलमान, आपने मैंने सुना है कि बीच में पढ़ाई छोड़नी पड़ी थी, उसके विषय में कुछ बता पाएंगे?
यस मैम।
जी।
मेरा परिवार बहुत गरीब है, मैं इसलिए पढ़ाई को छोड़कर अपने परिवार के संग पंजाब चला गया था। तो वहाँ पर हम 2.5-3 महीने काम कर आए थे, कपास बीनने के लिए गए थे। तो वहाँ से आए बड़े भैया ने इसी कारण, गरीबी के कारण पढ़ाई छोड़ दी, तो इसीलिए मैंने बड़े भैया के संग काम किया था। तो अब जब सिरोज दीदी जाती थी मीटिंगों में, तो बड़े भैया को मुझे से बात करने के लिए बड़े भैया को समझाया कि वो इसको पढ़ा लो। तो बड़े भैया से मैंने पूछा मैं पढ़ लूँ भैया? जब भैया बोला कि ओ सलमान, आप गरीब है और आपकी स्थिति खराब है घर की, तो पढ़ कैसे सकते हैं? मन की मैम बोल रही है कि सलमान मैं आपका एडमिशन कराऊंगी, और सरोज दीदी ने 9th क्लास में एडमिशन करवा दिया। अब मैं 10वीं हूँ, बहुत खुश हूँ, आगे बढ़ना चाहता हूँ।
बहुत बढ़िया। अब पढ़ाई को बिल्कुल आगे को जारी रखिए अपनी। अच्छा सलमान, अभी जैसे लकी बता रही थी कि उनके यहाँ पे कुछ और समस्याएं हो रही है, जैसे लोग वैक्सीन नहीं लगा रहे। आपके परिवार में लगाई है वैक्सीन लोगों ने?
वैक्सीन लगवाई है, मम्मी ने नहीं लगवाई, पिताजी ने लगवाई है। मम्मी तो डर गई वैक्सीन का नाम सुनते ही। तो
और बाकी अड़ोस
वैक्सीन
पड़ोस में लगा रहे हैं?
अड़ोस पड़ोस में इसलिए नहीं लगवाते वैक्सीन को, क्योंकि बच्चा पैदा नहीं होगा वैक्सीन लग गया तो।
ये अफवाह है?
अफवाह फैला रखा है।
तो आप लोग समझा रहे कि नहीं समझा रहे लोगों को अपने समूह के द्वारा?
समझा रहे लोग को समझ नहीं आ रहा, तो लोग बोल रहे हैं हमको मर जाने दो, हम नहीं लगवाएंगे वैक्सीन।
जानकारी देते रहिए। देखिए कभी कभी कुछ लोगों को समझाना जरूरी होता है ना, और बच्चे बहुत बड़ा एक रोल निभा सकते हैं जानकारी देने के लिए। ठीक है, अच्छा ये बताइए, ये जैसे स्कूल भी बंद है और आपने काफी सारी बातें अपनी रखी हैं सामने, तो ये अभी जाते जाते कुछ सुझाव हम सभी लोगों को अगर आप देना चाहें बच्चों की शिक्षा को लेके, बाल श्रम को लेके।
यस मैम।
जी सलमान।
स्कूल खुल जाए तो हम 10वीं को आसानी से पास कर लेते हैं और आगे बढ़ जाते हैं, तो क्योंकि लॉकडाउन ने स्कूल को बंद कर रखा है और सब बच्चों की पढ़ाई को बंद कर रखा है।
और कुछ बोलना चाहेंगे? ठीक है, ठीक है। सलमान और लकी, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आपका अपनी बातों को हम सभी लोगों के बीच में रखने के लिए, और उम्मीद है कि आप कार्यक्रम में हमारे साथ में बने रहेंगे। So just to summarize what children discussed, Lucky is 14-year-old and from Varanasi, UP, and her father works in a motor parts shop, and hardly and their work has been affected by COVID. Mother works to fill hay in the water cooler pad, and since schools are closed, so at times the other children, and at times I guess she also helps her mother. And Lucky is what she told us is she's an active member of Child Club. They call it Bal Pehrua. Few suggestions that Lucky gave us. One is there are various government schemes and which are available, but they should reach to children and people. And when schools reopen, children should be helped to rejoin schools. And also, the children who are, because schools are not open and they are involved in, kind of some labor work. So they should be tracked by by maybe the Anganwadi workers or the other responsible adults, and they should be bring back to the schools. And also, the way in the CIC, where they have the sanitization, sanitation kits and everything else, it should be available, when schools will be open, should be there. Coming back to Salman. Salman is from Lakshmanganj block of Alwar district, Rajasthan. Salman once stopped going to school because of the poor economic conditions of the family during COVID, and he started working as a daily wage laborer and discontinued education. And at this point of time, CRY and its partner team, field team, approached, counseled him and his family and persuaded them to continue his education. Now he is in class 10. And Salman wants to, is very happy back, he's continuing his education, and is very happy and want to continue his further studies. Important point that Salman made was, for the last 1 year, schools are closed. They don't have access to mobile phones and internet connectivity and etc. And it should be provided, and schools should be open so that they can again continue their studies. So taking few minutes now just to conclude the session here, we can clearly see how COVID has increased the struggle of vulnerable families to meet even their most basic survival needs. Schools are closed and digital divide is also clearly visible, and poses a risk to children's education. Such challenging circumstances tend to act as push factors when it comes to child labor. So linking families to livelihood generation and social protection schemes can reduce household level vulnerabilities, and we have been discussing this since morning. And convergence between different departments and ministries, government and civil society, and the participation of larger public could help support children to complete their education and not stopping them going into the child labor. It is also important to use this time to prepare accelerated learning programs or bridge school to cover for academic learning loss of children from marginalized sections. And when schools and bridge centers are ready to open, COVID safety protocols must be in place. Thank you so very much for the patient hearing. And now over to you, Nilesh. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, especially to all the children who spoke, who came forward and have clearly spoken about the ground situation. And it is an eye-opener, really. While we are discussing the policies and what we have achieved, what we can see on the other hand is the actual struggles the children are facing and probably how it might impact their future. So thank you, and we on behalf of everybody who is present here, and thank you, Preeti, for participating in this session. I would there are two questions in the chat box. Probably you can take a look at them and answer. I would like to move forward with the presentation which we have about the contributions the SDG partners are making towards these challenges. Of course, there are challenges thrown by the COVID-19 pandemic, but at the same time, organizations are trying to put their best foot forward. And I would like to invite Ms. Mary Sebastian from the International Justice Mission, who will take us through, who will quickly take us through the work of different SDG platform SDG 8.7 partners. Over to you, Mary.
Yes, thank you, Nilesh. Thank you so much. A very good evening to our bright and courageous dear children, distinguished guests on the virtual dais and in the audience. On behalf of SDG Target 8.7 platform, it is my privilege to introduce the initiative and the partners. It is helpful to understand the genesis of the SDG Target 8.7 platform from Alliance 8.7, which is a global partnership committed to taking immediate and effective measures to eradicate forced labor, human trafficking, and child labor in accordance with the Target 8.7 of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. In 2019, ILO had conducted a regional workshop to bring countries in the Asia and Pacific region together to share experiences and accelerate progress towards achieving SDG 8.7. Participants from India affirmed their commitment to advancing the objectives of the Alliance 8.7 upon their return home. But as we know, COVID happened, and ILO reconvened the group in September 2020 to discuss the establishment of an Indian platform on the lines of Alliance 8.7. Till a formal structure could be formalized for the same, a platform for coordination and collaboration under the aegis of SDG Target 8.7 platform in India was decided to be set up. This group has expanded its membership and sees the coming together of 15 diverse partners on the issue of child labor and forced labor in the country. We will now see a visual which depicts SDG Target 8.7 platform's beginnings and highlights the partner constituents' work. So in India, the need for a collaborative effort and a shared platform to facilitate partnerships among stakeholders has become more prominent with the COVID-19 pandemic. The need for better linkages between national mechanisms for monitoring and reporting on progress towards the SDGs and the national response towards child labor, forced labor, and human trafficking to accelerate India's progress towards the SDGs has definitely become more pronounced. The target group and its partners have joined hands and minds to help make these a reality and will strive with social and government partners towards making India child labor and forced labor free. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. The work being done by the partners is immense, and it is really difficult to summarize it within the available time. But I must appreciate that we have done a great job. We have tried to make it concise. And thank you, everyone who participated in the second session. We are closing the second session for the day, and we have to move towards the third session, which is a technical session, and which will also bring a lot of interesting insights, probably actions, which will help us to draft our future plans. This technical session, we will have participations from the key stakeholders who can contribute effectively in reducing child labor. I would now like to invite Mr. Insaf Nizam, our specialist for fundamental and principal rights at work with the ILO, and introduce us to the speakers and brief us about this session objectives. Over to you, Insaf.
Thank you very much, Nilesh, and thank you for the very lively and committed 2 sessions that we had previously. I congratulate the children who have been bold and who expressed themselves, and also all the partner organizations who have contributed to not only to the success of these 2 sessions and the event, but also who have been continuously contributing. So to start with the technical session, I would like to start with a PowerPoint presentation. As you know, the global estimates on child labor were released through a joint report published by ILO and UNICEF 2 days ago. And a number of speakers have alluded to it. I would like to start give you a brief introduction so that we can start the technical session based on that. I beg your patience for 1 second till I share the screen. Is it okay?
Yes, Insaf.
Okay, thank you. So on the World Day Against Child Labor, on the occasion, on the 10th of June, the global estimates for child labor were released by UNICEF and ILO in a joint report. Let me take you through the big numbers very quickly. It has been disappointing. 160 million children are engaged in child labor. That's not the only disappointment. The disappointment is that in the last report, it was 152 million. And now it has increased by 8 million. Why? As the director of ILO, Director General said, we took our eye off the ball. That's how he put it. We stopped paying attention, thinking that we were doing well. The alarming part is also that 79 million children out of this are in hazardous work, which is quite harmful, very harmful to them, and has to be eliminated as a matter of urgency. Going to the next slide. child labor in agriculture remains a big concern.
Insaf, your slide is not moving.
Okay, 1 minute. Is it okay now?
Yeah, better. Thanks.
Thank you. Agriculture is a big concern, and the biggest host of child labor is agriculture. 112 million children in total, and over 3/4 of them are from the 5 to 11 age group. Family work is not as safe as we think. Right? Now, this is another important remember when we are in India, 72% percent of child labor happens in families. It is 83% among ages 5 to 11. And family-based child labor is frequently hazardous, despite common perceptions that, it's safe and it's the parents who are looking after the child, and, they will make sure that the child doesn't come to harm. But that is not the case. More boys in child labor than girls. 63 million girls, 97 million boys. In Asia, if you look at the Asia figures, again, 67% boys and 32% girls. So this gives the gendered element of child labor. It's not one size fits for all. It's not unisex programs that we have to have. We need to carefully consider the gender considerations, the gender aspects when we are addressing child labor. Rural areas versus urban. There is 3 times more child labor in rural areas than in urban areas. Now, the irony is that, most of us who are working, the programmatic route is more based in cities. The response originates from the city, whereas the real issue is hidden in the rural areas. Now, this also brings a sort of a invisibility to child labor, which we need to take care of. Rural areas are less accessible to labor inspection, less visible, it's dispersed in vast areas of land. So there are challenges in addressing, particular challenges in addressing child labor in the rural areas. Child labor is frequently associated with children being out of school. So 28% of children 5 to 11 and 35% of children 12 to 14 who are in child labor are out of school. Let us look at the children who are in school. Are they safe? No. You see, across all regions, right? Significant number of children are combining child labor and schooling. So these are children, if I would say, on the fence. You don't know which side they will fall into, and the likelihood is that they will fall into child labor, full-time child labor, not full-time education. So a big group, 65% in Central and South Asia are combining the two. And it is affecting their education outcomes as well. And this was mentioned by a couple of speakers, COVID-related poverty will push 8.9 million, almost 9 million children into child labor by end of 2022. That is, if the current measures continue. If we fail to keep up with the social security measures that we have taken, it can increase to 206 million. The child labor can increase to 206.2 million, which is a staggering figure by the end of 2022. A huge challenge that we need to meet if we are to keep the numbers under control. Let's go one more. So the factors that are affecting child labor and the drivers: poverty, informality, social protection, lack of social protection, education exclusion, that is access to education, population growth, of course, and crisis and conflict. And we are in one of the biggest crisis situations that we have ever faced. So all this combines to exacerbate the situation of child labor. Out of all regions, this is the slightly good part of it for us, at least. Asia and the Pacific has done the best. If you look at the lines starts higher than any other, is the Asia Pacific line. If you can see the decline in Asia Pacific from 113 million in 2008 to today's 48.7 million in the current report, which is 2020. So this is definitely a reason for a bit of relief, not because the numbers are low. Definitely 48 million is a huge number, but it gives us a mild relief that the policies and the strategies that we are taking are showing results and the efforts are paying off. So nothing to celebrate, but a lesson learned that we can continue and strengthen the work that we have been doing in this regard. Now the question is, okay, now these figures are South Asia and Southeast Asia and Pacific combined. So we can keep asking whether the reduction is because South Asia has improved or Southeast Asia has improved. So it will take a while to answer this debate. We don't want to go to that debate, but the overall indicators, as we saw, when poverty, informality, social protection and other drivers indicate that South Asia is more vulnerable than Southeast Asia when it comes to the numbers. So something that we need to keep in mind when we plan our macro policy decisions. Now the big challenges for South Asia and particularly India, all the global factors that I mentioned, like poverty, informality, social protection, education, that is there. COVID pandemic is affecting this part of the world quite disproportionately, highly. That will have additional effects. Family-based work is very high. And as you know, this region is quite notorious for family-based child labor. And that is something that we need to pay attention to. Again, another phenomena that is particularly affecting this part of the world is migration, reverse migration, both internal as well as external. So countries need, India also needs a solid migration policy that is child-friendly, not only looking at migrant workers, but also their children and children who are migrating on their own for the purpose of work. Their needs have to be taken into consideration when planning migration strategies. Then we come to agriculture, largely agri-based economies with high informality, plus a lot of emphasis on supply chains. Now, these supply chains are, I think we are tending to look at them as sort of foreign elements, like foreign companies. No, the majority, 80 to 90% of the supply chains are internal in country. So we can't look at them as something that is foreign. Now we need to take ownership. The region needs to take ownership and work on the supply chains and engage proactively with businesses, and businesses have to proactively engage with the rest of the stakeholders. And then we have education, not only improving access to education and quality of education, but education has to be more attractive than work in order to bring back children from child labor to education. Now, if not, merely having an attractive option or improving access is not going to help solve the issue. Then we come to the lack of data, which is a pressing issue, which I can't emphasize more. We need to have proper information, proper data. This is the responsibility of all, from government to all stakeholders, to have solid data so that we can analyze, identify proper issues and take proper action. Thank you very much. And now I would like to call upon the rest of the panel. Second, please. Of sharing. Yeah. I would like to invite Ms. Vandana Kandare, Child Protection Specialist, to Vandana, please share your thoughts on the risk of COVID-19 pandemic and the increased risks for children on the move. Vandana, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. My presentation is with you. If you can put that up, please. Good evening, everyone. My esteemed speakers have already highlighted the situation that children are facing today. And every year we come together to remind ourselves of how important this issue is and of the plight of children who are exploited and have to work instead of playing and being in school. Next, please. We have heard children today, and we have learned so much from their powerful testimonials, actually. And if children are here today, मैं यही कहना चाहूँगी कि आप सबसे बहुत कुछ सीखा आज. और आज सुबह भी हम बच्चों की आवाज़ें सुन रहे थे. This morning there was another meeting which was organized by the Campaign Against Child Labour, where we heard a lot of children give their testimonials. And it has been hugely overwhelming and insightful. So we will take their suggestions and we hope to act upon them. As today the theme is act, inspire, and scale up. So I think the time for action is now. And what begins as a health crisis in the current situation today has now taken form of a full-fledged humanitarian crisis. And we have seen the data that INSAF has just presented. And the socioeconomic crisis is even manifold, more for children. So despite not having much data on children and in the increase of numbers that we have seen, many children have been affected, and we have also seen so many cases of children who have been rescued from being trafficked in the last few months, ever since the reverse migration began from the cities. Also, we have seen that the death of the primary bread earners and the caregivers has also resulted in children taking their roles. And also, you may have also seen in different media articles and different pieces of information how there are so many now child-headed families where the eldest sibling is taking the responsibility of looking after children. So now this is how we are seeing also the increased impact on mental health and how psychosocial support is required across for families as well as for children. Next, please. So with the reverse migration adversely impacting the several families, UNICEF had commissioned a qualitative assessment to understand the impact of COVID-19 on migrant workers and their families in 2 states, which is UP and Bihar. And we did this in collaboration with the Development Management Institute. This assessment highlighted, based on our preliminary findings, you can see here that how families have been, from the most vulnerable and excluded communities would not been able to access basic services and requirements. And also we have seen how important documentation is for all the families. And we have seen how that the lack of documentation has resulted in inability to access services, especially these to the most vulnerable and excluded communities, and the challenges which have been faced by them. In this scenario, we have seen that it's the children who are most impacted, especially since Anganwadis are closed and schools are closed. We have seen children have also facing a crisis of nutrition, and food security is something that also we really need to look at. And as well as, as was mentioned earlier by one of my esteemed speakers, the importance of access to benefits of the Mahatma Gandhi Employment Guarantee Scheme. This is something that we really need to emphasize that families should have access to. Next, please. So just very briefly, I would like to just explain here UNICEF's approach that we use towards ending child labor. One of the most important aspects is, of course, the convergence and coordination between the different sectors. As ma'am mentioned this morning in the Ministry of Labour, the multi-sectoral approach is extremely important, especially when we work for access to social protection, skill development, and we're also looking very importantly at career counseling for young people and as well as skill building. So this is something that we feel that requires different ministries to come together and collaborate. The other areas which we work is most importantly, we feel is that of prevention. And this is something that comes right down from the state to the community level, where we work closely on prevention of children being separated from families so that children can go to school and they can also access all the services. Here we would like to emphasize, since we do have members from Ministry of Panchayati Raj, Ministry of Labour and colleagues over here from across the board, that how important it is for maintaining a record of those families which are so vulnerable, which need access, which need support from everybody. So how do we do that, and how do we, help to track those families through the schools, through PRIs, through public awareness campaigns, and like what ma'am had also mentioned, from social and behavior communication. So this is something that we are working with very closely. We are working across more than, in India, we work across 17 states. And we do also focus targeted work for prevention and response in over 7 to 10 states. We are working now at the community level. And we also have a targeted program in UP, Bihar, as well as in West Bengal with the support of FCDO. We work very closely on system strengthening because we believe that if you do not enhance the system and develop and make it more sustainable, this change will not last. So we work very closely with the first responders, which are the police, the anti-human trafficking units, border security forces, as well as in the area of prevention, rescue, and rehabilitation of children. We also work closely with civil society organizations on the ground. And recently we have been also trying to see how we can get in the current situation due to the pandemic. Frontline workers, Childline has played a really, really critical role in helping to also identify and prevent children from being trafficked for labor and for other purposes. So across the board, we, as what Insaf also mentioned before, the importance of generating evidence, the importance of data is critical. So this is something that we see is cross-cutting, and we would like to work across all sectors for this. Next, please. So this is just a snapshot of some of the work that we do. For example, in Bihar, we do have worked very closely with the Labor Department for the development of something which we call the Child Labor Tracking System, which helps in the case management of rescued children who come into the system from the time they come in. We also have a good partnership, which is very important, with Railway Childline as well as with the Railway Police Force in Bihar. This is so critical for identification as well as safety and prevention of children, because they are the first responders that come into contact with children. We also know, we've realized recently the importance of mental health. And this is something that we are looking at developing partnerships on mental health online as well as at the community levels. We're looking at all levels where we can train counselors, train people who will have access to families, especially post-COVID, where we realize the need for grief counseling, the need for psychosocial support is critical. Next, please. So finally, my key asks to everybody here is, of course, stronger coordination, like I mentioned earlier, across the departments. We also have a special ask for the labor unions as well as the industry to ensure that there are no children in the supply chain. And as was mentioned before, the importance of data and evidence, but also the importance of reporting, also the importance of how do we have people, to be more accountable. The accountability is so important. And that is something that we find that is really needed to be able to go forward. We also need to develop a system to identify, to track the children who are at risk at the panchayat level so that they can be provided with the support system and the access to services. And of course, most importantly, children need to play, children need to be back in school, and that is something that we can all come together with. And so I think this all will not be possible without adequate human and financial resources. So I would like to conclude here by saying that we all need to come together next year to see the difference that we have made. And as Niharika said earlier on in the presentation, that we need to hold each other accountable for what we do this year. The time is now to act and to inspire. With that, I would like to say a big thank you to all of you today.
Thank you very much, Vandana, for presenting some very insightful thoughts coming from the vast experience of UNICEF with your organizational expertise. And I don't want to, pinpoint any particular area that you highlighted, because all the 9 asks are equally important. But if I have to, I would say that a systems-based approach, prevention, and convergence. Those are the 3 things that really appeal to me that we all need to work towards. Thank you very much, Vandana. And now may I invite Aravind Francis, representing All India Employers Association, to speak to the audience. Aravind is also the Assistant Secretary General of Federation of Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and he has been an active member of the platform from its inception. Over to you, Aravind.
Thank you, Insaf. All the panelists, ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to all of you. I thank ILO for inviting me today to share my thoughts on COVID-19 and its impact on child labor in India. As we all are aware that as per the latest joint report of United Nations and ILO titled Child Labor Global Estimates 2020 Trends and Road Forward, the world has marked the first rise in child labor in 2 decades. And the coronavirus crisis threatens to push millions more youngsters towards the same fate. The report further warns that progress in labor has stalled for the first time in 20 years, reversing the previous downward trend that saw child labor fall by 94 million between 200 and 2016. Talking about India, the situation is not much better. The pandemic has caused economic crisis at home, and family pressure has pushed the children into work. Most of the parents had lost their jobs or earned very low wages during the pandemic. The closure of 1.5 million schools due to the pandemic and lockdowns in India have impacted many children enrolled in elementary and secondary schools and added to the risk of them slipping into child labor and unsafe migration. In India, we have a very stringent legislative framework which prohibits employment of child labor and have serious implications. The 2 landmark legislations, that is Abolition of Forced Labor Act 1976 and the Child Labor Regulation Abolition Act 1986, and later the Child Labor Regulation Abolition Amendment Act in 2016 were passed, and government to progressively eliminate child labor from the country. In 2017, India also ratified the 2 key core conventions on child labor, that is Conventions 138 on minimum wages and Convention 182 regarding worst forms of child labor. The Indian employers in the formal sector have taken a note of the same and have adopted a sensitive approach in supporting initiatives for eliminating child labor as a result. I would say that there is no child labor in the organized sector. The incidents of child labor are in hidden forms and confines to the unorganized sector, home workers, and in supply chain activities. To withdraw, eliminate child labor in various operations and rehabilitate them successfully, All India Organization of Employers along with FICCI has been propagating a multi-pronged...
Arvind, your voice is breaking. Would you like to try switching off the video and then?
Sure.
Okay.
Is it better now?
I think so. Let's try.
Okay, just a minute.
Sorry about that.
Insaf, is it better now?
Yes, please go ahead.
So I would like to mention some of the work done by All India Organization of Employees along with FICCI and also with ILO. Many Indian companies, including FICCI and AIOE as member associations, have committed themselves to UN's Global Compact, whose principle includes effective abolition of child labor. Some of the renowned companies who are also the members, like Asia Brown Brewery Limited, ABB, Associated Cement Corporations Limited, Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited, India Farmers Fertilizer Corporation, Indian Oil Corporation Limited, Tata Industries, etc., are all working in this area. FICCI Socio-Economic Development Foundation, in collaboration with Rajiv Gandhi Foundation, had initiated a project titled Empowering Adolescents Through Life Skills Education. The project, it covered 10 slums of Delhi and had targeted all the out-of-school adolescents. The project follows like skills education strategy, which is a comprehensive behavior change approach that concentrates on the development of the skills needed for life, such as communication, decision-making, thinking, managing emotions, assertiveness, resisting peer pressure, etc. A 5-day curriculum has been developed to impart life skills to these out-of-school adolescents. FICCI, in collaboration with the Council of Indian Employees and supported by ILO, also implemented and sensitization projects among various sectors such as automobile repairs, hotels and restaurants, stainless steel, BD workers, and slate in 5 areas in Bhopal, Chennai, Hyderabad, Kanpur, and Pune. All India Organization of Employees, in collaboration with IPC, they conducted a project called Action Program on Supporting Employees Initiative in Combating Child Labor. The project included series of national policy development initiatives accompanied by the development of employers-friendly advocacy and operational tools. The end result was a voluntary code on business practice to be adopted by the industry and an implementation manual for the code. During the interaction, it was noted that in the formal sector, the employers the responsibility depending on their respective sphere of influence, which generally are the first line vendors and distributors. Beyond that, it does become a challenge. Now is the time that we should actively and urgently take steps to see that the children are back in school, or need to support whatever we can do so that they can attend the online classes. Vulnerable families should be covered under comprehensive social protection schemes to ensure a decent living. Labor laws and regulations must be strictly enforced. Child protection committees should work efficiently to identify vulnerable children and support their families through social protection schemes. AIOE is committed to the cause and would be encouraging its industry members to adopt the voluntary code of business practices and sensitize their supply chain to prevent employment of child labor. Thank you. Over to you, Insaf.
Thank you very much, Arvind. Very encouraging words from the employer's side. In fact, if that commitment from the employer's side was not there, we wouldn't have come this far, achieved whatever we have achieved in terms of reducing child labor. Particularly what you mentioned last, the voluntary code of commitment. It's the voluntary commitment that really makes a difference. It's not necessarily putting pressure on the businesses, but it's the change of culture, the change of attitude, the change of commitment that's what brings a lasting, sustainable difference. Thank you very much. And now I would like to invite Christine Nathan who is a board member of the Hind Mazdoor Sabha, one of our leading trade unions. And she's also a former ILO workers activities specialist and is a very passionate advocate on the issue of child labor, eliminating child labor. Over to you, Christine.
Hello.
Go ahead, Christine.
Yeah. First of all, good evening to everybody. Dagmar, director of the ILO, various panelists and representatives of various organizations. Allow me to thank you for this introduction, Nizam, and invitation to address the event on World Day of Child Labor. I'm happy to represent the HMS, and on behalf of the workers and trade unions, would like to raise a few issues and concerns. While a lot has been said about the work done and how the challenges are faced in dealing with UN SDG 8.7 by the various organizations, all working individually and jointly, the trade unions and social partners do recognize and acknowledge these events who are the social partners of the ILO. We see the term child labor defined as work that deprives children of their childhood, their potential, and their dignity, and that is harmful to physical and mental development, as said by the earlier speakers. It refers to work that is mentally, physically, socially, or morally dangerous and harmful to children. The ILO, in collaboration with the Alliance 8.7 Global Partnership, has launched the International Year for the Elimination of Child Labor to encourage legislative and practical actions to eradicate child labor worldwide. These are some of the issues I would like to address. Target 8.7 asks member states to take immediate and effective measures to eradicate forced labor, end modern slavery and human trafficking, and secure the prohibition and elimination of the worst forms of child labor. As we have said earlier, the numbers of child labor has been increasing drastically, and particularly in the COVID times. The COVID crisis has been mentioned earlier, has brought additional poverty to these already vulnerable population and will reverse years of progress in the fight against child labor. School closures, job losses has aggravated the situation, and many millions of children are working to contribute to the family income, has been mentioned by several speakers. The pandemic has also made men, women, and children more vulnerable to exploitation. Addressing these issues from the world of work, workers, and the discussion today in the trade unions are whether unions are keen to understand the role of the governments and how they are encouraging legislative and practical actions to eradicate child labor as mentioned in the document. Number one, India has ratified ILO Convention 138 and 182 in 2017. What we are continuously talking about now is what has happened in 2020 at the time of the pandemic, but what about from the year 17 to 1920, from 2020? It's almost 4 years since the ratification. The question the unions are asking, how is it being implemented? What are the tools and changes in the law over the years? We have seen now scandalous number of children entering the informal and formal labor market and working in absolutely exploitative conditions, and as the ILO PowerPoint mentioned, in hazardous sectors too. Prayas, the organization, showed the slides showing the exploitation of these children and children speaking themselves. Does Prayas has any program or data collection of such cases? It will certainly useful for the ILO and the UNICEF when we are looking at understanding the new laws after the ratification of 138 and 182. It brings me to another very important question. Is there any data collected on these issues to consider how do we draft new laws? How do we prepare new measuring tools? We need data of accidents. We need data on the occupation safety and health of children. And we need data on the accident rate of these sectors. We know that even the data on adult accidents is not notified, least to talk about children. And this is a very important area. If we are looking at rights of children, we also have to understand rights of parents. Now, governance has a very, very important role here. Brings me to my next point. It's closely related to the implementation process of the law on child labor. The role of labor inspectors who should have access to the workplaces and report violations, which is very largely absent today. India has ratified ILO Convention 81 on labor inspection, but there are drastic changes in the implementation of the labor inspection, which has weakened the system, weakened the act, as self-inspection by the employer has become the new norm. And the question today facing us, which employer, big or small, will ever report he or she employs child labor? My next issue is there any data on penalty to employers who employ children? As the law says, penalty and or jail those who violate the law. This data will help in keeping a check on the sectors where child labor is prominent and where the different stakeholders can work jointly. The earlier PowerPoint mentioned about trade unions playing a role in monitoring in the supply chain. The representative from the employees organization said, organized factories, we do not have child labor. But we would like to reiterate here, child labor may not be in the main factories, but definitely in the supply chains. What we are looking at is presently another challenge which the trade unions are facing is with the amalgamation of 44 labor laws into 4 labor codes. This is placing a lot of restrictions on organizing workers and also making it difficult for trade unions and having their role in the country. Role of trade unions to monitor, to report, and to look at the supply chain is highly hampered. If workplaces are organized with collective agreements, one will see that children will not be employed. Organized workplaces, no child labor. Unorganized workplaces, prevalence of child labor. And with the absence of trade unions, this is making it much more difficult. Adult workers through collective bargaining agreements will secure the correct wages, and hence there will be no need to bring children to work, as it is a logical fact that underpaid and poverty makes parents bring their children to work. In many workplaces, children are also working under bonded labor, along with their parents and families. Once again, due to lack of organizing and presence of trade unions, many a times this leads to trafficking of children who are used as carriers, as drug peddlers, prostitution, etc. Another area of concern unions debate is that children should be in schools, yes, and not in workplaces. But poverty, insecurity, loss of jobs brings children in to support the parents with a meager income or die of hunger and poverty. Loss of childhood is a luxury against poverty and hunger. Yes, education is compulsory, as said by many speakers earlier. There is a law too. But with parents with no jobs or job security is contradictory. And so children drop out of school when parents face the crisis. UNICEF says we should help families to make a choice. How do we help families to make a choice if poverty, hunger, and loss of jobs is the main challenge they are facing? The girl child is hardest hit in these times, as we all know. We should not consider the elimination of child labor in isolation, as it is connected to several social, economic issues as well. All the policies, laws, legislations have to be implemented in tandem if we want a reality where there will not be child labor will be eliminated. Trade unions have been working with children in the brick kiln areas, in the construction sector, in the agriculture area, tea sector, children working in the BD rolling sector, kendu leaf plucking, etc., etc. There is an urgent role to include trade unions and employees' organizations, NGOs, academics, research institutions to work jointly to meet the goal of SDG 8.7 and eliminating child labor. We will have a celebration when there is no child labor anymore. Thank you.
Christine, thank you very much. Very inspiring words. You touched upon a number of very important issues, pertinent issues, and not only touched upon issues, but you asked some very pertinent, challenging questions which we have to ask ourselves. Thank you very much. And if I have to sort of summarize, child labor is not eliminated in a vacuum. It has to be put in the context of decent work for all. And when communities, when people, when families have access to decent work, not just work, then the need for them to send their children to work will automatically. So let us put child labor in perspective, in the context of decent work, look at it in a holistic manner. And the one thing that you emphasized again and again and again was data. Data. Without data, we can't progress. We don't know where we are going. It's like, navigating without a map. So data is an absolute need. Thank you very much, Christine. And I would now go to welcome Ms. Anu Anand, Director, Advocacy, Center for Media Studies. Media is something that we always talk about. When we talk about child labor, we say awareness, lack of awareness, that families have to be provided the awareness, the labor inspectors have to be made aware, the community has to be made aware. Ultimately, it boils down to media. What can the media do? How can the media contribute to these efforts? Anu, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Insaf, for inviting me. Hello, everyone. As many earlier speakers have shared, that there is no doubt there is a significant increase in the number of the child labor during the pandemic due to the closures of schools, uncertainty, and reverse migrations. During the second wave, we also witnessed so many children have been orphaned. Campaign Against Child Labor survey tells us that the child labor has increased around 20% among the vulnerable communities. Ms. Vandana has also mentioned in her presentation that children are forced to work. More than 94% children in the survey have said that the economic crisis at home and family pressures had pushed them into the work. Most of their parents had lost their jobs or earned very low wages during the pandemic. Now coming to the point about the role of media in visualizing the issue of the child labor, I feel that Indian media has covered the child rights stories in the past and has been very instrumental in bringing a few progressive amendments in Child Labor Prohibitions and Regulations Act 1986. However, seeing the enormity of the situation and the percentage of the violations of the child rights and child labor, the coverage of these issues is not sufficient. It is either urban-centric, incident-oriented, or on a sensational topic within the child right issues, and even the child labor. I think the pandemic situation, there is an immediate need to highlight the situation about the increased number of the children taking up the employment for low wages, leaving the schools, and ready to work in a pathetic conditions to earn their livelihood. In this scenario, I would like to suggest writing on these issues in long-form journalism, which will give a deep analysis as well as an insight to create the awareness among different stakeholders. Also, reporters need to highlight these stories based on the technique of the solution journalism. Solution journalism, I mean, not only highlighting the problem, but also suggesting solutions to eliminate the problem. Other than that, everyone was mentioning about the data. Yes, of course, even for the journalist, data is very important. So with the help of the data journalism, the severity of the problem, I feel, can also be highlighted in very, very authentic way. We have seen there is a lack of stories regarding the rehabilitations of the children freed in child labor raids. Covering the efforts of the civil society and child rights organizations can also create a positive atmosphere and a fair kind of thing among the employer violating the child rights issues. Also, I feel that there is an urgent need of having some editorial, or you can say news desk policy, to cover the child rights issues on regular basis. It can be a child right beat only, maybe any kind of this thing, some kind of a this editorial policy needs to we have for the more and more coverage. We also need to have a sensitization sessions or discussion at the editor level. Many of training workshops, fellowships, and awards have been provided from time to time to the reporters to write on such issues, and they have been oriented to go to the field and cover such stories. However, these efforts don't produce any results unless media organization realize the importance of such coverage and give a space as per their policy. Yes, one more point, I feel that there is a lack of ethical guidelines on reporting child rights. Some guidelines have been developed by the media associations and civil society organizations, but we need to establish certain strict code of conduct and guideline, and also to create awareness about them. There is also need to have a regular flow of information from the CSOs working on the issues to concerned media persons who are covering the beat, like what is happening in the field and how they can get access to the relevant and updated data about the issues. Many times I have observed that it happens that reporters don't get the required information they seek to write. Hesitancy among government officials and UN agencies officials to get the approval from senior officials to share the information also sometimes cause for the low coverage. We need to have more interactions with them. In addition, I also feel there is a need to have a one-stop information portal is required, where updated data regarding the child labor from all over the country can be uploaded frequently and media persons have access as well as informations about it. I think these are the few issues I wanted to highlight from the media perspective. Rest, I leave it to the other my co-panelists. Thank you.
Anu, thank you very much. When it comes to media, I think the role the media plays and should play is so vital in terms of eliminating child labor. But unfortunately, when we talk about stakeholders in eliminating child labor, we think about UN agencies, NGOs, then workers' organizations, trade unions. Media doesn't come automatically. I think what you have said emphasizes so well the integral role media has to play. I mean, we ourselves, those organizations, the stakeholders who are working to find solutions should automatically think, or it should be in our blood that media is part of the solution, right? So thank you very much for highlighting that. It's such an important thing. I think our interaction with media should not be just on events, but between the events. What we do between the events on a continuous basis is the key to what we need in terms of cooperation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My dear friends, colleagues, children, we've come to the end of a very lively, active, interactive session. I'm not going to do a word of thanks, but just to round up, I want to quickly go through the different elements that we touched in our agenda. We started with some high-level panelists with some key ministries and heads of UN agencies coming and addressing, as well as a representative from the civil society. Right? This shows the importance of high-level commitment in addressing child labor. What can happen on the ground can happen, but unless the higher level is committed, that is political will, political commitment, it's so difficult to bring that overall change, that macro change that we need. The agenda itself is put in such a way that we have come to, the importance of all the partners that are needed. And just finishing from the media point, we have now go to the next session of the agenda. And I would like to hand it over back to Nilesh to continue with the remaining. Thank you.
Thank you, Insaf, and thank you all the participants. This was an enlightening session, I must say, because the kind of expertise which we had on board in this session was great, and the passion which I could see with which you all addressed the issues and also suggested the solutions. I think they will be surely helpful for drawing our future activities. So without taking much of a time, I would like to move towards the final session and a very exciting one, which is the launch of the joint ILO and UNICEF media campaign against child labor. And to begin with, let me call upon my colleagues from UNICEF and ILO to brief us about this initiative first. Mr. Giovanni Sogat, Chief Technical Advisor, Asia Regional Child Labor Program of the ILO. I would request you to first give us a brief presentation about the campaign and the work which is taking place.
Thank you, Nilesh. Namaskar, everyone, and nice to be with all of you. A lot has already been said about the new child labor numbers. In the actual event where this was launched 2 days ago by ILO and UNICEF, the reactions expressed by guests included that of being heartbroken or shocked. Insaf a while ago used the term disappointed. What struck me the most, though, the word that was used or the statement that was used was, "This is a wake-up call." This is implying that the world has been asleep or half asleep the past 4 years. And our current challenge is to exert measures to rouse the world from its slumber. What does waking up someone entail? The seemingly mundane task is actually challenging because you are going against what the object of your waking up wants to do, and that is to continue sleeping. What do? You whisper slowly, you nudge gently, and if this does not work, you start raising your voice and you actually shake the person rigorously. Waking up people through various devices is an industry unto itself. I propose that waking up someone is an act of communication. And in the light of the increase in the number of girls and boys in child labor, 4 years before the 2025 SDG deadline, we are being asked to communicate in a better and stronger way to wake people up even though they don't want to make them change their behavior even when they don't want to. This partnership between ILO and UNICEF to pursue a communications campaign in India is thus very timely and relevant and could be crucial if we are to turn the tide. This will run during the rest of this international year for the elimination of child labor from June to December 2021. And we will check upon the end of the year if we need to continue it beyond. Some of the key messages we will be using in our wake-up calls are the following: that child labor harms the society and the communities in the long term. This will be targeting families and their children, that communities have the responsibility in educating the parents on the importance of education of children, right? The role of communities also in monitoring and tracking. And for employers, that child labor does not save costs for the companies in the long term and impacts their credibility. The plan is to use physical materials such as posters and banners, engagement with print and electronic media, and we just had a colleague from media talk before this, and also, very importantly, social media. As we go into actually developing and producing the materials, however, I would like to propose that the new numbers challenge us to become more innovative, to explore means that might actually work this time. If our communications have not woken up people in the last 4 years, we have to think outside the box this time. Our approaches should have the ability to penetrate this very private space where child labor decisions are made, like in the homes or farms of families where, under pressure from the hardships they face, the decision for children to work is made. I like the idea also, as proposed by our colleague from the media, about solutions journalism. And we also saw that today in the testimonies of children and in the work of the members of the platform, that we have more of that, showing solutions as something positive rather than just focusing on the problem. ILO and UNICEF were side by side when the global report was launched 2 days ago. In the World Day celebration in Nepal yesterday, World Day Against Child Labor, stakeholders were clamoring for support from both ILO and UNICEF. In the World Day Against Child Labor commemoration also this morning in Bihar and Jharkhand, ILO and UNICEF were together along with other stakeholders. Most of all, ILO and UNICEF are siblings under the ARC program family funded by FCDO. It is thus good to see that ILO and UNICEF are also bringing their strengths together in this communications campaign. A big thank you to our friends and colleagues in UNICEF. I look forward to this partnership, seeing it develop further and reap concrete gains. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Giovanni. We also have Mr. Yasuma Sakimura, Deputy Representative of the UNICEF in India. And I would like you to request to add some more further information about this work. Over to you.
Great, thanks very much. Let me begin by thanking your all participation on the World Day Against Child Labor. I'm particularly pleased to the participation of children, and it's great to hear their testimonials and their feedback. So really important to hear from them directly today. The impact of COVID-19 pandemic putting children at extremely vulnerable to neglect, abuse, and exploitation. Children in child labor are at risk of physical and mental harm. Child labor compromises children's education, restricting their rights and limiting their future opportunities, and leads to vicious intergenerational cycles of poverty and child labor. Just about a month ago, on 11th of May, we had a report that at Hajipur railway station in Bihar, 4 children were rescued from the Azamanga Kolkata Express train, along with a suspected trafficker by Railway Protection Force and Railway Child Line. One of the rescued 12-year-old boy told Childline counselor, "He is taking us to Kolkata to work in a biscuit factory. And he has given 2,000 rupee to our family and promised us that we will give him 2,500 rupee as a monthly salary." This is one such case amongst many such unaccompanied children who migrate in unsafe condition for work. In support of the ongoing efforts of the government of India, UNICEF and ILO are going to launch a nationwide campaign and a pledge for joint action through a series of joint initiatives commencing today. We are starting with a social media campaign and hope to take it to the children, communities, panchayats, and the local bodies to ensure that every single stakeholder has the knowledge and the information for accessing social protection, education, health, and psychological support for children. The joint campaign will also be integrating information on the heightened risk for children vis-a-vis trafficking and labor, while debunking many myths and misconceptions associated with child labor, such as child labor is necessary because families are extremely poor. The pandemic is now threatening to devastate the huge gain we made in child labor over the past 20 years, and we should not let that happen. It is time to take collective action now for our children. I hope the campaign will raise visibility of the issue of child labor and foster the needed traction for collective action for prevention and more effective response. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kimura. I think you have summarized the objectives of the campaign really well. I would like to show our audience here a bit about the preparations which have taken. I think this is a perfect occasion, or this is the best occasion to kind of launch the visibility and awareness campaign on this subject. And there has been a lot of preparation which has gone gone into it. I am just sharing a few components of this media campaign which we will be launching today, or which we are launching today, and which will be continued throughout the year. Just as a background work, or as the planning for this campaign, we have come up with a small communication strategy jointly developed by the UNICEF and ILO together. This small brief document, which has been compiled together, provides a brief introduction about the current situation and the activities which both the organizations are planning to take forward. There are key objectives set under this communication activities, which are mentioned in this document. Also, the key stakeholders who could support us in improving visibility of the child labor issue and bringing solutions to resolve the situations have been identified. And there are very basic activities at the individual level, at the family level, community level, institutional level, also at the structural level, that is policy level, we have been identified. And there are key messages which are in line with the activities have been identified as a part of this process. And to launch this campaign, there have been, we have also developed a small video which we would like to show to the audience. I'm going to play the video from one of the child from Tamil Nadu. We will just hear him and his voice.
வணக்கம், என் பேர் மதன். நான் வட சென்னையில கொக்குப்பேட்டையில இருக்கேன். எங்க ஏரியால பாத்தீங்கன்னா நிறைய கஷ்டப்படுற ஃபேமிலி இருக்கு. இந்த கஷ்டப்படுற ஃபேமிலியில எங்க ஃபேமிலி ஒண்ணு. எங்க அப்பா ஆட்டோ டிரைவர். எங்க அப்பா வந்து குடிப்பழக்கத்துல ரொம்ப அடிமையா இருந்தாரு. எங்க அம்மா எக்ஸ்போர்ட்ல தான் வேலைக்கு போறாங்க. எங்க அம்மா தான் எங்க ஃபேமிலி எல்லாம் பார்த்துட்டாங்க சம்பாதிச்சு. இந்த கோவிட் லாக்டவுன்ல பாத்தீங்கன்னா எங்க அம்மாவுக்கு வந்து கொரோனா பாசிட்டிவ் இருந்துச்சு. அப்ப வந்து எங்க அம்மா ஹாஸ்பிட்டல் இட்டு போயிட்டாங்க. என் தங்கச்சி எல்லாம் நான் தான் பாத்துக்கிட்டேன். வீட்டுல சமையல் செஞ்சு எல்லாம் என் தங்கச்சி நான் தான் பாத்துக்கிட்டேன். அப்ப வந்து எங்க அம்மா சரி வீட்டுக்கு வந்துட்டு பாத்தீங்கன்னா வேலைன்னு கேட்டப்ப வந்து எங்கேயும் வேலை தரல. அப்ப வந்து நான் வேலைக்கு போனேன். காலையில 6 மணிக்கு போயிட்டு நைட் 8 மணிக்கு வருவேன். 150 ரூபா 200 ரூபா சம்பளம் தருவாங்க. அப்போ வந்து பசங்களுக்கு படிக்கணும்னு உரிமை இருந்ததுனால எனக்கு படிக்கணும்னு ஆசை இருந்தது. அதனால வேலையை விட்டுட்டு என் சம்பாதிச்ச காசை என் தங்கச்சிக்கு ஃபீஸ் கட்டினேன். அப்புறம் வீட்டுல சும்மா இருக்கிற நேரத்துல வந்து வீட்டுல கொஞ்சம் சிறு தொழில் மாதிரி செஞ்சுட்டு இருந்தேன். எங்களால ஆன்லைன் கிளாஸ் அட்டன் பண்ண முடியல. எங்க வீட்டுல டச் ஃபோன் இல்லாதனால அது ஒரு பசங்களை அட்டன் பண்றதை பார்த்து எனக்கு கொஞ்சம் மன கஷ்டமா இருந்தது. அப்புறம் வந்து என்னுடைய எய்ம் வந்து சிஎம் பண்ணணும் ஆசை. நான் சிஎம் ஆயிட்டேன்னா எல்லா குழந்தைகளுக்கும் தரமான கல்வி, இலவசமான கல்வி தருவேன். ஐ எம் வெயிட்டிங். நான் சிஎம் ஆவதை நீங்க பார்க்கணும்.
So this was a bit of glimpses into what COVID-19 has how COVID-19 has directly affected the children. Although we all know that the pandemic has not directly been threat to the children, but the economic setbacks which it has created, the impact it has had on the adult population is surely going to percolate to children. And to highlight that, there would be this year-long campaign, 7-month-long campaign, which will be taken up. One of the objectives of the campaign also would be to give voice to the children, and we just saw an example of that. There would be some educational activities which would be taken up as well. For example, this carousel which has been put on the Instagram of UNICEF today, it informs the audiences about the basic actions they can take in case they come across a child working in any sector, any areas. So is there a law to protect children against labor? So it gives them brief information about that. What are the laws which protect these children, and probably how the audiences can take action against that. Similarly, there have been promotions going on about the activities ILO and UNICEF would take up together. We have started pushing them on our social media handles of UNICEF and ILO both. And I would request the participants here to join us on this social media activism as well. You will find the Twitter accounts of the ILO highlighting these similar messages. So this is a first step, I would say, towards towards the threat which we have come across. This is the first step towards a solution, I would say. We have started taking. First is, of course, acknowledging the problem as we all discussed today, and creating awareness, reporting the issues of child labor, and working together towards solutions, I think would be the way forward. So this would be the official launch of this campaign. And to conclude, I would like to call upon Insaf again to give a summary of the event and word of thanks. Over to you, Insaf.
Thank you very much, Nilesh. I think we have to agree that it was a very lively and interactive event. I think I've been participating in these events for the last 3 years in India, and we have seen more formal government-led events or some events organized by NGOs, but I haven't personally seen an event where all partners, all stakeholders have come together in this manner on an equal footing to put the ideas together, to bring their energies together, join forces, and find solutions and to show their commitment. Maybe it is because of this year is also the International Year for the Elimination of Child Labor. But I think we as stakeholders, all of us, are taking lessons from the past, that we realize that we can't do things alone. We need to do things together, bring everyone together on a platform where we not only showcase our own achievements and our own approaches and programs, but also respect and value what others are doing. That is the message that is coming across from all the sessions that we have seen. The other point is commitment at all levels that we have seen, and it has been emphasized by numerous speakers. It has to be high-level commitment at the grassroots level, commitment at the policy level, the bureaucratic level, the implementation level, and both local, international organizations. So commitment at all levels, workers' organizations, employers' organizations, that we have seen. And I think we all realize the importance of it. That is the message coming across from here. Then the third point I would say is the importance of engaging with the media, not as an external stakeholder where we go when we want to buy something, we go to a supermarket or a shop and we give some money and get something. Not that approach. To bring the media as an integral part of the solution, to make them as well and just a stakeholder as everyone else, right? So this, was emphasized by our speakers, as well as the fact that a multimedia or a social media campaign has been launched within this event is also testimony to the importance of that. Data was emphasized. We have now the macro data. We are not going to be satisfied with that. We need to drill down to get country-specific data, state-specific data, so that we know the problems. When you go to a doctor with some problem, the first thing is, you get a list of tests that you have to do. So to find out what is wrong first. So I don't want to draw parallels, but we need to understand the problem first. In its the size of it, the characteristics of it, the magnitude, where it is, etc., so that we can find proper solutions. With this, I think we all understand and agree to the. We can agree to the fact that the initiative taken to establish a platform on the basis of SDG 8.7 has brought us all to this, has facilitated this communication and collective engagement. The message here is that this coming together should not be just for an event. The events are important because it gives us a start to go a longer journey, walk a longer journey. And this is that start, right? So this is not the end. This is not something that we close the Zoom application, close the laptop or the mobile, and the event is over. We are happy. We go home and then come back next year, 12th June, with another event. No, that's not the idea. Our engagement has to be continuous and sustainable and meaningful. And that is where we as collective partners in this journey are trying to strengthen this platform where all stakeholders can come together and work together to eventually completely eliminate child labor from the country and from the globe to the extent possible by 2025 or the earliest date possible. Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you very much, friends. Thank you very much, most importantly, the children who have participated and expressed their voices. Thank you.
Thank you, Insaf. And we officially announce the event has concluded. Thank you everyone for taking our time and participating.